Hey everybody, Mike here from Rebel and Trains. I'm going to show you guys tonight how I build my wiring harnesses for my T-Trak modules. Now I use these. This is for one of my 1-foot modules. And you can see here by the camera, they're not just bare wires. They're wrapped in this little wire wrap insulation here. And then of course they got the power pole, the Anderson power pole connections on each end. So this is one of the Y harnesses for a 1-foot module. And I also make these in a large, this is a spool, it's about 5 feet long or so, and this is just an extension harness. So I'm going to show you how I create a wiring harness. It'll be a small one, but the way you make it is all the same, whether it's the small harnesses or the large harnesses. The methods are the same, the materials are the same. It's just the number of wires inside and the size of the wire wrap is a little bit different. Pretty sure you can figure out how to go bigger. So let's get down to it. So here we have the tools and supplies that we're going to need to do the job. First up is going to be a set of sharp wire cutters. I'm using my rail nippers for the job. Next thing I've got here is the crimp tool for the ferrules. It's very important to use this type of crimp tool to get a good even crimp on the ferrules, or else they won't hold on to the wire properly. Next is a pair of automotive crimp tools. I use this style because it gives a much better crimp than some of the cheaper ones do. And here's the wire strippers. There's many different styles. This is just the one I've got. Now when you strip the wires, you're going to want to bare about a 1/4 inch, as you will see here. There we go. When we can get it in focus, you'll see I got about a 1/4 inch of wire that's been bared. You also want to twist it into a really tight twist. That'll help you in the when you come time to crimp things down onto it. And here is the actual wire wrap itself. It's comes in a spool like this here. There's a label, so you guys want to get some. Got it on Amazon. It's pretty cheap. Next up would be the the Anderson power poles. These are 2-piece units. The little silver pieces are the electrical contacts, and then there's the plastic housings that go in them. These contacts are 15 amp. They got a smaller hole for the wire than the 30 or 45 amp. There you can see the hole. Use the one as close to the wire size as you're using. That'll give you a much better, more positive crimp. Here's some shrink wrap. These are going to be to finish up the ends of the wire harness. You can use electrical tape if you don't have shrink wrap, but the shrink wrap just makes a much better appearance. And these two little guys, these are the ferrules that will assist in attaching the wire to the screw connectors. The wire won't fray or break using those in the connectors. So these Anderson power pole units here, they have a little seam in the, oh, never mind, we're doing the ferrules first. Sorry about this. So yeah, the ferrules, you see you stick the wire in the ferrule and you crimp it down and it crimps that nice and evenly. Like I said, the point of the ferrules is so that when you screw the screw down in the screw connector, which you can see that right by my hands there, it doesn't crush the wire and break the wire. So you get if you need to move them around or whatnot, you get a much more positive connection. And again, twist the wires good and tight, make sure there's no strands coming out. Stick it in the crimp tool, give it a squeeze, and there you go, all done. Now, what I was talking about earlier, when it comes to these power pole connectors, the camera's hard to see, but there's a seam on one side of the connector and it's all round on the other. That seam you're going to want to put in the dish side, where I'm pointing to, of the crimper, and then the side without the seam will go where the point is there. If you get them backwards, you won't get as good a crimp as you could possibly get. In fact, it'll most likely fail on you. So as you see here, I'm sticking it in there with the seamed side into the dish. I give it a little squeeze. You don't have to squeeze all the way, you just need to squeeze enough. And as you see, there is a really nice, even, perfect crimp there. And we will do it again for the black wire. So, like I was saying, you don't need to squeeze it all the way down. In fact, doing that could actually cause the damage to the crimp connector and would cause you to also have a bad connection. You just need to squeeze it down tight enough to get a good solid bite on the wire. Now, the last tool in play here is going to be the push tool for the Anderson power poles. Now, this tool is not necessary. I have it because I do a lot of these things and it does make the job a little easier. But in all honesty, a small bladed, flat bladed screwdriver is more than adequate to push these in. You'll see me do one here real quick. Oops, it slipped out of the hole, so I have to reposition it. And boom, done. It is that quick, that simple. Let's get a close up on how to do that. It might show you a little bit better of what's going on there. Alrighty, it'll take me a minute to get everything positioned, but once everything is in position, it'll just drop right in. Now these connectors only go in one way. It's really hard to screw that up. If you push it in backwards, it simply won't take, it won't connect, and you'll just be able to pull them apart again. So there's really only one way to do it, and you see the tool there, you put it on the top, push down, and it's done. That's it. That's all there is to it. So now we're ready to put the wrap onto the wire. So we're going to make sure that these wires are, or the power poles are connected in the proper way to go to their mate. So here I am lining them up properly for their mate. Now power pole connectors, as you know, have a little slot, a little keyway where they slide into each other and hold on. So there I've locked them in place. Now these wire wraps are kind of like with the Chinese finger traps. Those little toys you got, when you went to the dentist or the doctor as a kid. You squeeze them together, it loosens up the webbing, and you can slide it in. Then you hold on to the wire, the beginning of the wire, and then you tighten up the crimp as you go through, squeeze together. It's kind of like an accordion. You know, squeeze it together, hold the wire, let it loose, and then it'll slide down the shaft of the wire as you go. And it takes me a minute to get this done here. This is the 1/4 inch wire wrap, which is good for 2 to 3 wires. The wires I'm using here are, I think these were the 16 gauge wire that I had lying around. You get more than 3 or 4, and the 1/4 inch simply becomes a little bit too tight. Here we are putting some shrink wrap on the very end. Now you got to be careful when you're putting it over the wire wrap there, because the little strands will start to unwind. This is what the shrink wrap helps prevent. If you didn't use this on there, eventually the entire wire wrap would unwrap itself. Make sure you position everything nice and even. Slide the shrink wrap all the way to the end. And there you go. It's ready for the heat. And now we're going to do it to the other side with a slightly smaller piece. Again, you don't want to have the shrink wrap all the way to the wire wrap, excuse me, all the way to the very end of the connection. You're going to want to have a little bit of space where the shrink tubing is going to be on both the wire and the wire wrap. All right, now when it comes to the shrinking portion of it, I use a heat gun. The wire wrap is very delicate. In fact, you look closely, you can see I accidentally melt it a little bit when I do the other side. And if you were using a flame for the heat shrink, it would almost instantly melt the wire wrap. So you just got to be careful. As you see, I keep waving the heat gun around, and there we go. In a couple seconds, it's done. Now, if you watch carefully here, I loiter a little too long and accidentally melt the heat shrink, or the shrink tube. Oops, yep, there we go. That's where I did it. You can see the shiny there as I flip it around. It wasn't too bad. Still usable. You just got to be careful with it. And there you go. That's all there is to it.
All right, thanks everybody for stopping by. That was my video on how to create my insulated wiring harnesses. I like using these mainly because the shielding around this protects the wire. It also doesn't have, you don't have the wires, the individual strands going every which way. I also like using the silicone wire for these so that they're really flexible and they don't hold their shape or hold their form, so they are allowed to be able to manipulate it and put anywhere, which works really well when you're putting out a club layout with the T-Trak modules, because you can hide them under the modules, and you don't have one that's bent and stays bent, which could throw the modules off. But once again, I'd like to thank you all for stopping by. I would appreciate it if you can give me a like and a subscribe, and I will see you on the next one. Have a good night.